joining us today. It's actually the last number here from the special group. We thanks the Ligia Kanaeda band for joining us today, live from Spokane. Pretty soon we'll bring our MCs up. Couple more minutes and we'll officially start our event. This to you just to bring you world songs and greetings from the Marshall Islands. Ben hermano, yo digo a chino yun. Karwain ni all of live. Oh, ya boy, yo kaya na alam. Kamolol pwede ko ko bang pendoro. Kamane, live dinare. Malagi dito ang kumudot din. This next music goes out to all the viewers this evening. Greetings and yapper. Thank you for listening and indulging us with your presence this evening.
We cannot hear you.
Too loud.
Yawalan Komole. As it's with Marshallese traditions, first we start off by giving thanks to our Heavenly Father for bringing all of us together on this monumental moment. For it is by His grace, this space for nuclear justice, showcasing we are not alone, is enabled. We would also like to take this time to recognize and give respects to our nation's president, His Honorable David Kabua, the cabinet, our Irojos and Lerojos of Manit, Alabaro, and people of the Marshall Islands. On the topic of our land, it is important that we acknowledge the people of this land we are standing on and hosting from, Spokane in Washington, some of whom are present today to share their stories. Additionally, to all nuclear frontline communities who continue to persevere. Yesterday was a powerful start off of this event, and we would like to thank our Ragis, intergenerational panelists, and performers. Last but not least, all who are tuned in today, many, many thanks to all of you. Feel free to react, whether it be hearts, thumbs up, or comments, and share. Now I invite Reverend Senji to open today with prayers. From what?
Reverend Kanaeda, I believe that you are muted, but we're ready for you whenever you're ready.
Be a good person and world peace. Thank you for sharing the prayer. You can't hear the sound.
Yago and welcome everyone to day 2 of the Washington Marshallese Nuclear Victims Remembrance Week event. My name is Francine Anmanto Mulie Tulua. I work for the RMI National Nuclear Commission as well as the social media committee for the Washington Nuclear Victims Remembrance Week.
Yawai Olive once again. My name is Selena Nader Glam. For the past 3 months, along with Sally from yesterday's intergenerational panel, I am a co-event organizer for this event. and from my preteen years, an avid climate warrior for our country.
Thank you everyone for joining. As Selena mentioned earlier, please feel free to react in any sort of way. Please use the chat box and use the reactions. Before we begin the panel discussion, we would like to highlight Deb Abrahamson, who passed away on New Year's Day this year. Deb was a relentless warrior for justice, an amazing woman, and had a special passion for Mother Earth. She fought so hard to live. She touched the lives of so many. Born on the Colville Indian Reservation in March 1954, Deb made her life goal to leave the world better than she encountered it. She led the Spokane tribe of Indians in a fight against nuclear energy and for the preservation of a clean earth, especially against the midnight mine and uranium contamination for her cancer. Yesterday, March 15th, would have been her birthday. We want to honor her and her legacy by sharing a video to bring Deb's own words into today's event. We will be playing a video from Indigenous Peoples Day where Deb spoke as an honored guest. We would also like to acknowledge Twa-le for letting us share her mother's story.
It's a great day to be Indigenous. My name is Skunku Milchin. It's Rainbow. I come from the Spokane tribe, Navajo, Coeur d'Alene, and on the Dene side, my clans are the Beth-Virginie and the Kaidane on my mother's. My mother's Navajo and my father's Spokane. I'm a mother, a grandmother, an auntie. I come from the Spokane tribe. I was born and raised there. And we ended up with 3 uranium sites, 2 mine sites and 2 mill sites. And so we're born into toxins, as are the Yakamas, as are many of the tribes, because that's how the government set it up. Resource drainage was vital in order to maintain peace during the Cold War. As a result, our people suffered. So during the time of being raised on the reservation with uranium going through, and our grandmothers and our grandfathers, our fathers and our mothers working there, our brothers, my brothers all worked there, we end up with a lot of cancer on our reservation, a lot of cancer. And we started looking into that and started to find out what's going on. How come we continually rotate death after death? And tried to get the government, tried to get the tribe involved, tried to get the government involved and do all of the work, networking with the state agencies. Well, we developed a grassroots organization called SHAWL Society, Sovereignty, Health, Air, Water, and Land, to be able to address the concerns of our people, to be able to bring voices to the decision-making tables, because all too often it was nothing but EPA, mining, and other representatives who were at the tables making the decisions for our people. They didn't live on the lands. They didn't die on the lands. And we said we have a right to be at these tables. So we fought to be at the tables and got on board. Pretty soon we had local networking efforts coming to help us with other non-native nonprofits, and had developed networking across the nation through Indigenous Environmental Network and the Western Mining Action Network. And so it brought a lot of good people and resources to help our community to look at the mortality rates and look at why we were so sick and what can we do to change this for future generations. And how do we address the toxins that are going through our water, that our elk and our deer, as we continue subsistence living with our roots and our medicines, how do we prevent ourselves from getting sick when we are continuing to gather, we're continuing to harvest the animals? How do we do that for our people? And it was a matter of education. And part of that education was bringing in our young people. And this is, my daughter is here today with me, and she graduated from the University of Washington with environmental science degree. And I'm just so very pleased that not only are we here because all of us care about the Earth Mother, all of us care about our people, but it only makes it strong. For me, when I see like-minded people, there's joy, because you know there's always going to be hope, and there's movement that people are going to help our Earth Mother heal so that humanity can go forward, and that our animal friends and everything, that we can still go forward as humanity in spite of Trump. It's just to the point of ridiculousness. Anyway, we're not even wasting energy there. But, you know, I'm a person, I've been in recovery for 35 years. It was very important that people help me through that. And it's very important because it helped lift the fog and move forward on behalf of the people. And it's not easy. It's never an easy trek to go against the grain. We all know that. But we keep our faith. We find like-minded people to stay strong. We keep our prayers. We drink our water daily to help us so that our great-grandchildren, we know that there's something in place, because we all know that our ancestors sacrificed for us in every way so that we can be standing here today. So I'm just so very grateful to be here, to see all of you, and I have no regret about the work that has happened, that the intentions have been good, and that it will continue, that our people will prosper in spite of Trump. So I would like my daughter to come forward and speak to you. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for caring for this moment. Lem Lynch.
Once again, we would like to honor Deb and all the work she did for nuclear justice in her lifetime. Thank you, Twa-le, for sharing that beautiful video of your mother for us to share with everyone else. Today, we will be hearing from a panel of community leaders from Washington that have been directly impacted by the legacy of nuclear weapons. We will hear stories from plowshares, Hanford Downwinders, Yakama Nation, and other Spokane tribes of Indians, as well as Reverend Senji, and understand our shared nuclear legacy. After the panel discussion, we will have a Q&A.
Our first speaker is Twa-le Abrahamson-Swan. Twa-le Abrahamson-Swan served as the air quality specialist of the Spokane Tribe of Indians. She is the youth coordinator and a founding member of a grassroots organization, SHAWL, which stands for Sovereignty, Health, Air, Water, and Land. They educate communities about how 50 years of uranium mining has exposed the Spokane Reservation to radiation and toxins. She has a BA in Environmental Studies and Restoration Ecology from the University of Washington. Please, Twa-le. Yes, so Twa-le, if we can please come on so we can hear from you.
Oh, I apologize. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you all very much for the invite. I know it's something that we've been really trying to do just in our own networking, is to reach out to everybody. And because of our stories and our shared connections with the health of our communities, I think that we're ready to do that and ready to reach out. And I think we're seeing some progress in the data that's available too, because I think when we started organizing in our communities, one of the things that was really important was traveling with your elders. So I was fortunate to be raised and to go alongside these meetings because we knew that these issues were going to last for generations in our communities. And so in that work, it's great to see so many young people involved in the planning and the coordination and just learning about the issues, because it's not something that gets solved fast, but there's progress being made. And so just thanks again. We'll stay in touch a little bit more about the last few years in our sites. We saw with the administration some deregulation efforts that will continue to impact the community related to just what was allowed to be released. So it's kind of been a real negative for the community here. And I know that other nuclear sites around the United States have seen the same type of actions. So it's something that we want to, bring forward and continue to work on, as well as the transportation routes of the waste that's coming from our reservation. So that travels all the way to the Four Corners area, and it's something that will be ongoing forever. So it's another issue that we really want to stay in touch with others and coordinate with. But thank you again for the invite, and I'll stay involved.
Thank you, Twa-le. I just want to highlight on that mentorship that you have with your mother and her bringing you, and also the other elders who were able to join in your travels. It's definitely something I've seen within the Pacific community as well for the marshlands as well, in how our leaders are bringing our youth to these global and international conferences to join and know how to start from a young age, as you mentioned. And from here on, our next guest speaker is Samantha Redheart from the Yakama Nation. Samantha is an enrolled member of the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation. She has worked for the Yakama Nation for 23.5 years and started an environmental restoration waste management program in 2009. Samantha enjoys learning about Hanford's past, present, and future. She is dedicated to ethical Yakama values, a fast learner, and enjoys a challenge. In 2009, Samantha started as the program bookkeeper, then transitioned to the procurement position, and is now the STEM coordinator. Her role is to provide Hanford with information on current cleanup activities and get our youth interested in environmental fields of science, law, and STEM. Please, Samantha. Yes. So before Samantha, just a moment before Samantha joins us, any thoughts that you have of the speech that we've, what we've heard from Twa-le, for example, our previous speakers, is also from yesterday as well. If you joined, feel free to go ahead in the comment section and write about it and tell us your thoughts. Now, Samantha.
Hello, my name is Samantha Redheart. I work for the Yakama Nation Environmental Restoration Waste Management Program. I am the STEM coordinator for our program and work to educate Yakama Nation members, youth, and our community about ongoing Hanford cleanup activities. I'm excited and thankful to be a part of this 2021 Marshall Islands Nuclear Remembrance Days and learning more about the Marshallese Indigenous people and their continued work for nuclear cleanup. I have invited 2 of my children to participate and speak and share a comment towards the end of our video. Working for the Yakama Nation, I feel proud that my work is purposeful and I'm not just showing up every day. I feel like I'm doing something that will impact my children, my children's children, and future generations. Hanford is a multi-generational challenge, and it is necessary to have a clear understanding of the Yakama Nation strict cleanup guidelines. The Columbia River must be protected, and the Yakama people are the most impacted. Our homelands cannot become a sacrifice zone for nuclear waste. The Yakama Nation Treaty of 1855 cannot be abrogated by Department of Energy. The communities locally can be involved in cleanup activities by participating in public meetings, public comments, and these are all public information and public activities, which now are being done virtually. And just due to the pandemic, work at Hanford has not been stalled or stopped. There are still ongoing technical working groups working virtually to protect the Yakama Nation cultural sites and ongoing national meetings being held. Our employee participation is vital and important to the ongoing process of Hanford cleanup activities. Radiation is an invisible threat that cannot be seen, felt, smelled, or touched. Our staff works with DOE to make sure cleanup is at Yakama Nation strict standards for cleanup. Currently, we are working on, DOE is trying to reclassify high-level waste to low-level waste. If high-level waste were to be left in place, it'd be left to contaminate the Columbia River. The Columbia River human health and environment are being further threatened by this action. There is 56 million gallons of high-level waste currently at Hanford site. Since cleanup started decades ago, millions of tons of contaminated soil have been removed. Millions of gallons of groundwater has been treated, 6 reactors cocooned, hundreds of buildings demolished, and 2 old test reactors removed. But there is more to do, such as high-level waste treatment and disposal, demolition of canyon facilities, cocooning K reactors, clean up groundwater, and treating the Vado zone. And Hanford is a place of great cultural significance to the Yakama Nation, as it's an ancestral wintering ground for the Yakama people. A clean and productive Columbia River improves life for all people and future generations. The Yakama people reaffirm our promise to honor, protect, and restore the river. And Hanford, by the numbers, 60% by volume of the nation's high-level waste is located at Hanford. Hanford site cost estimates through 2090 is $107.7 billion for cleanup. 200 square miles of groundwater beneath the site is contaminated and migrating to the river. An estimated 80 square miles are contaminated above drinking water standards. Approximately 1,900 waste sites are identified at the Hanford site. Okay. The Hanford Reach is particularly significant because it is the largest remaining spawning grounds for fall Chinook salmon on the main stem of the Columbia River. Yakama Nation works to preserve archaeological, cultural, ecological, and natural resources, and to limit access and to have limited access, public access to these culturally significant sites. A clean, productive Columbia River improves life for all people and future generations. Some of the barriers that affect or impact the Yakama Nation members is the fishing rights and seasons along the Columbia River that have been impacted and no longer available to our fishermen. And the Department of Energy hiring outside experts, unresolved jurisdiction of cultural resources, and no cultural resource management plan. Yakama Nation staff work to enforce Yakama Nation cultural staff work cultural resources on the Hanford site. Also, Yakama Nation works closely with the Department of Energy in getting our youth interested in STEM careers. And the United States Department of Energy has a great STEM Rising department that work hard with the Department of Energy laboratories and getting youth interested in STEM. I would like to share a few photos of some ongoing activities that we work in partnership with the Columbia Riverkeeper staff. A Hanford Journey event Yakama Nation did in collaboration with Columbia Riverkeeper staff. I worked closely with Simone to plan this great event, and it was unique. And as it was one of the first events we've had where we did boat tours to educate Yakama Nation members, Yakama Nation employees, and community to participate in such a great event. We had a great turnout. We did registration, and we were impressed with the interest of Hanford cleanup activities. Just prior to the event, there was some Hanford was in national news for some was it the leaks, tank leaks was making national news. So there was a great interest in cleanup. But in the photo is the Yakama Nation Swan Dancers, which is a group of parents and youth that go around and perform cultural dances to educate people about some of our traditions we practice. And this is a great photo of our youth and some of their traditional regalia, and they're representing their community with their crowns, and they did a great job performing, and they impressed a lot of people there that have never witnessed their swan dancing group. So that was fun. This is a great image to clean up Hanford at the Columbia River. So I really like this image and thankful for their participation. Also pictured is people in a boat heading out to the Hanford site. On the boat is some of the Columbia River Keeper staff. While on the boat, we would give out info about Hanford and what they were looking at and some of the historical impacts and ongoing activities. In the photo is my dad, Dennis Fyander Jr., my son, Kapkana, and one of my coworkers' grandsons as well. So we did have a great turnout with people of all ages participating in this great event. So the boat tours was a great hit. We also have done classroom presentations, and in this photo, you'll see the White Bluffs, which is a great, beautiful photo at Hanford about White Swan students for Hanford cleanup at the middle school. And the students there were really great and really interested. We handed out stickers and gave out prizes to incentivize learning about Hanford cleanup. It is so technical but still important, even though it's so complex. They all did great, and we're looking forward to more opportunities in presenting in the classrooms settings now that we're getting back into in-person school soon. So this has impacted our outreach, and we are doing what we can.
My name is Jeffrey. I'm 14. I am an 8th grader, and what I've learned about Hanford is there's these big tanks that leaked into the earth and it's polluting the ground around the Hanford. And then cleanup is important to reserve the land around for hunting, fishing, and gathering for future generations. Thank you for inviting me.
Hi, my name is Leilani Redheart. I did a little research about the Marshall Islands, and I'm also interested in learning more about you guys and what you guys are able to do about what happens to your guys' population. I would like to present to you this video, Hanford, a future worth fighting for. And I hope you guys are more interested in Hanford nuclear cleanup. Have a good day.
Have a great
Thank you all for that wonderful speech. And also Samantha was not able to attend and join us live today. I believe that all of us have been left enriched by all that she has shared, along with the two youths that joined with her towards the end of her video. And for, you know, when you're faced with all these numbers and catastrophes that your place is facing, you can't help but envision the present world that you are in, as well as the future world that your children will be inheriting and are currently living in. So bringing back that purpose of living with purpose and giving back to the community, something that the Marshall Island is very, very solid on and continues to live throughout every people and as our children are growing up. So without further ado, we'll continue and share the Hanford video that Samantha and Leilani mentioned. Thank you.
Imagine the most toxic place in America. Is it a factory spewing neon green pollution into a river of floating dead fish? A city cloaked in toxic smog? Nope, you're looking at it. This is the Hanford nuclear site, 580 square miles containing the most dangerous radioactive and toxic waste in the Western Hemisphere. and it sits along the banks of the Columbia River, a river that provides drinking water to downstream communities, irrigation water for nearby farms, and prime habitat for the Northwest's iconic salmon. Tribal nations, including the Yakama Nation, have treaty-protected rights to the Columbia River's iconic salmon and the Hanford nuclear site. Now, the Trump administration wants to cut corners with Hanford cleanup. The target? Radioactive and toxic waste buried in massive underground tanks. Here's the plan. First, the United States Department of Energy will reclassify certain types of high-level waste in Hanford's underground tanks to low-level waste. With just a sweep of the pen, high-level waste becomes low-level. Clever, right? Then, the government will use the new label to justify leaving dangerous material in the ground at Hanford forever.
The Yakamas are still here and that we're still going forward. We know we can't make it pristine, but we want to make it better than how it's being reclassified today. That's not acceptable because it's sacrificing the land here.
How will people use Hanford in 25 years, 100 years, and beyond? When cleanup ends, will Hanford remain the most toxic place in America? Or will it become a vibrant landscape where people can live, work, and fish? Hanford is a place worth fighting for, to protect people's health and safety, to hold our government accountable for treaties with tribal nations, to honor and respect all people that call the Columbia River home. You can help protect the remarkable people and places that depend on Hanford cleanup.
Thank you once again, Samantha, for sharing the video with us as well as taking your time to send your video to participate in our event. As we see in the video, there's many places that are affected from nuclear waste. We acknowledge all these groups and stand beside those who are affected by nuclear waste. Up next, we will be hearing from Trisha Pritkin. Trisha has worked for over 30 years for justice for those who, like her family, now suffer with or have died from radiogenic cancer and other illness following exposure to ionizing radiation downwind of Manhattan Project and Cold War nuclear weapons production and testing sites. She is an attorney and former occupational therapist. Trisha, go ahead and unmute and please share your story with all of us.
Thank you so very much. This has been a great event so far. I was here yesterday and today, and I'm really enjoying it a lot. I'm here as a representative of thousands of people who lived throughout the Pacific Northwest and down the Columbia River during Hanford's 40 years of plutonium production. And during that period of time, Hanford operators secretly released a vast range of radionuclides to the air and to the water of the Columbia. And I'm honored to be part of these activities because there's a direct link between Hanford, where the plutonium was produced for most, if not all, of the atomic and thermonuclear tests conducted in the Marshall Islands. And so Not only did Hanford injure a great number of people downwind and downriver of the site in the United States, but just the amount of irradiation of the Marshall Islands is appalling to me. I also serve as president of a nonprofit, Washington State nonprofit called Consequences of Radiation Exposure, which was formed in 2015 to serve as a voice for various populations around the world exposed to low dose ionizing radiation. I see from the list of people here, we have several board members who are here tonight. Yuki Miyamoto, Bo Jacobs. We have about 17 to 19 academics on our board. We're so lucky to have these people. We have a couple downwinders, a couple attorneys, and so it's our job to keep the voice of the downwinders out there in the public. Now, I was born and raised in Richland, which is the community closest to Hanford. I want to talk a little bit about what happened to me because my story is very typical of what happened to a lot of children who were exposed downwind of Hanford. And I feel, and many of the diseases, cancers and other diseases we suffer from are also seen amongst Marshallese and others who are exposed in the Pacific. In utero, infancy, and childhood, I was exposed to the, excuse me, the airborne radioactive byproducts of plutonium production. And also, I got a lot of radioiodine through the milk pathway, that is through milk products, baby milk, cheese, ice cream, all the way through childhood, which is your most vulnerable period of life. As a result of these childhood exposures, which I didn't even learn about until 1988, after being sick for years, I now suffer from autoimmune thyroiditis or Hashimoto's, which is typical of many of us, hypothyroidism, and hypoparathyroidism. My voice goes out easily. I'm sorry. It's just part of what I have to deal with as a result of the radioiodine exposures. My thyroid was removed in 2009 after cancerous Hurdle cells were detected in a nodule on my damaged thyroid. Because my dad had died of thyroid cancer and I had been exposed to so much radioiodine and cancer cells were found on my thyroid, they decided to remove it. When they removed the thyroid, I lost 3 of 4 parathyroid glands. The parathyroids are right next to the thyroid and they regulate serum calcium. I now have 1 transplanted parathyroid gland under my clavicle. It barely functions, so I have problems with serum calcium levels and kidney function. I have tetany, paralysis, and recently developed a problem with my throat constricting so I can't breathe. So this is what I haven't been able to control yet. It's a very difficult disease, and a lot of us who are exposed to radioiodine, particularly those of us who've had our thyroids out, have lost our parathyroids because of the autoimmune mess in your throat that's caused by the autoimmune thyroiditis. They can't find the parathyroids when they remove the thyroid, so you lose the parathyroids as well. So Hanford produced not only, excuse me, plutonium for the atomic and thermonuclear bombs detonated in the Marshall Islands, but it produced plutonium for the Trinity test, which is the very first, world's first test of an atomic bomb. For Fat Man, the bomb dropped on Nagasaki as well. And so Washington has that connection to the Marshall Islands, plus, as Deb mentioned in her video, starting in 55, I believe it was, when the your Midnight Mine opened on the Spokane Reservation, the uranium was used at Hanford. So we have those 2 connections to the Marshall Islands. We are not alone is the theme of this week's nuclear remembrance activities. And as a person whose health has been irrevocably damaged by exposure to Hanford's radiation releases, this theme is very significant to me. People exposed to fallout from tests in the Marshall Islands, to fallout from the Hanford Reservation, as well as to fallout from other nuclear weapons production and testing sites throughout the US, suffer from identical radiation-related cancers and other diseases. Many have died from these diseases. As downwinders, We're far more powerful and more difficult to ignore when we raise our voices together in solidarity. This is one reason that this week's events are very important. I mean, this is the first time I've really been to an event that brings so many different groups together. And I thank the organizers very much for this. Someone was a visionary when they thought of this. It's clear to me from the reading I've done that fallout exposures in the Marshall Islands from US thermonuclear and atomic tests occurred far more broadly than on just a few northern atolls, and that the health damage resulting from these tests, other than just Bravo, in 1954, there was far more damage than just from that one test. I want to make that clear. And also the 4 atolls that have been identified by the Department of Energy are not the only atolls that were exposed to significant levels of radiation. It's also clear to me that current day levels of radioactive contamination within the islands present grave continuing exposure risk. That's clear. I'm appalled at the level of disregard shown by the government of the United States towards the people of the Marshall Islands, people who have been displaced from their ancestral homelands and relocated to other atolls and islands, which offer them scant resources for survival. I'm pleased that Medicaid and children's health insurance have finally been reinstated to tens of thousands of Marshallese who reside in the US under the Compact of Free Association. But at the same time, it's very disturbing that the Marshallese residing in the Marshall Islands have no comprehensive cancer care center, no oncologist, and no endocrinologist to help address the multiple cases of thyroid disorders, thyroid cancers, and other radiogenic cancers that have resulted from the US testing program. I lost both my mother and father to radiogenic cancer resulting from their exposure to Hanford's radiation. I suffer from significant lifelong damage from my own exposure as a child. I stand in solidarity with the people of the Marshall Islands as you seek nuclear justice. I fully support the goals of the fiscal year 2020 through fiscal year 2023 strategy for coordinated action to achieve nuclear justice in the Marshall Islands. The points follow. 1, full payment by the US of all past and future awards of the Nuclear Claims Tribunal. 2, quality health care for all Marshallese. 3, reduction of the risk of exposure to radiation and other toxins in the environment. 4, building national capacity to monitor and understand radiation impacts themselves rather than having to rely on the Department of Energy or others coming in to tell them what their risk is. Number 5, education and awareness of the nuclear legacy, which is what you're doing in these activities this week. The theme of this week's events, We Are Not Alone, is very important too because we all form part of a group of fallout exposed civilians, whether we are Marshallese, other Pacific Islanders, or Americans. As a group, we've been consistently disrespected, disregarded, and mistreated by the US government, both during and following exposure to fallout released from nuclear weapons production and testing. These exposures occurred without regard for our welfare and in almost all cases without notifying us of the radiation exposure related dangers we faced. Our group, which is a definable group, it's not an undefinable group, it consists of families of uranium miners, millers, and transporters who were often exposed to uranium dust on the workers' clothing or to uranium tailings and other radioactive materials discarded in their communities. And these materials often became the playthings of children, which led to significant exposures in the children. Additionally, our group must include the family members of atomic veterans, of members of the military who were brought into the Marshall Islands, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki after the blast, and of test site workers. Families of these individuals are not currently eligible for compensation under federal law, although some of the adults I mentioned are currently eligible, such as test site workers, uranium miners, millers, and transporters under RECA. If we are truly to begin to work together in solidarity, I believe that we need to make some changes in our approach to seeking nuclear justice, and I'd like to take a moment to discuss those changes. First, number 1 is all of us need to stay informed on the struggles of other radiation exposed communities, not just our own. For instance, my concerns as a Hanford Downwinder need to extend beyond the issues facing people exposed downwind of Hanford to the issues facing the Marshall Islanders, the Trinity test site downwinders, Nevada test site downwinders, families of uranium miners, millers, and transporters, people exposed to radioactive waste at Coldwater Creek in North St. Louis, Missouri, children of atomic vets, and those exposed at other Manhattan Project and Cold War sites around the country. When any of us talk to the media, write advocacy pieces, or give public presentations, it's important to speak of our exposures as part of a bigger picture, as part of a human catastrophe of mammoth proportions, which is the legacy of the US nuclear weapons program. Thirdly, I feel we should seek a national downwinders compensation program. What has happened so far with regard to compensation of downwinders at a number of exposure sites is unacceptable, and I wanted to discuss that real quickly. The Marshall Islands downwinders have a nuclear claims tribunal set up for fallout exposed Marshall Islanders to seek compensation for personal injury and property damage related to US nuclear testing. Based on the merits of the evidence presented by claimants, the tribunal has made many compensation awards, yet the US government has failed to pay on a large percentage of these claims. Nevada test site downwinders, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, or RECA, passed in 1990, has awarded compensation to only a small percentage of civilians exposed to fallout from US atomic tests conducted at the Nevada test site. Left out of the RECA legislation are geographic areas including northern Utah, Montana, Idaho, and other areas shown by the National Cancer Institute's NTS I-131 Fallout Dispersion Study, which was released after the NCI sat on the study for years, released 7 years after RECA was passed. If it had been released before RECA was passed, they would have known there were other areas with comparable, if not higher, exposure levels than the areas that are currently eligible under RECA. The Trinity test site downwinders are currently seeking compensation by having RECA expanded. These efforts have not been successful thus far. As to us, Hanford downwinders, we had 25 years of litigation, which is the longest civil litigation in Eastern Washington. We started with 5,000 plaintiffs, personal injury plaintiffs. Only a small percentage of them received settlements, which were abysmally low, often just a few $1,000s for a cancer death. Many plaintiffs who suffer or have died from cancers other than thyroid cancers and a few liver cancers received nothing. To conclude my presentation today, I want to make 2 suggestions for everybody's consideration. First, I'd like to suggest the formation of a frontline community advisory board consisting of representatives from each of the US and Marshallese Pacific Island civilian groups exposed to radioactive fallout from US nuclear weapons production and testing, in addition to representatives of children of atomic vets and the families of uranium miners, millers, and transporters. It would be the work of this advisory board to unify the efforts of all exposed groups and to guide the unified groups on issues of compensation and other aspects of nuclear justice. Secondly, this is my last recommendation, I would like to see the creation of a unified online archive presenting the stories of the impact on individuals' lives of exposure to radioactive fallout from US nuclear weapons production and testing. If all of our stories are available in one collection, the extent of the damage to health and lives caused by wartime and Cold War nuclear weapons production and testing will quickly become apparent to the public at large. And I just wanted to show you one thing that we did for Hanford. This book came out during the pandemic. It's a wonderful time to launch a book. And it contains 25 stories of Hanford plaintiffs. A lot of these people, and it's actually, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people saying that they didn't know how bad it was. And now they kind of get it because they see repeated thyroid cancers in young people. They see autoimmune problems. They see reproductive disorders. And if we can, a lot of these stories have been also put onto into an archives in Cheney, Washington, which is near Spokane. And it's the start, it's a Hanford archives. There's also a Nevada test site archives, but I would like there to be one unified archives because that's how powerful this would be to see everybody's pictures and stories. I think, oh, the only other thing I want to mention was the net proceeds of the sale of this book go to CORE. We're trying to raise some money for CORE to do more work. Thank you very much for including me in today's event. It was really an honor to participate. I'm all finished with what I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Trisha, again for joining us today. Your story relates to many Marshallese who are also affected by nuclear waste. We appreciate your story and stand by you today. As you mentioned earlier, we are all connected in a way. I sit here today and see that we are not alone. I'm sure many of our groups felt that way, that we were alone and nobody can understand us, but as you can see today, we are not alone. It is important to stand together and raise our voices and share our stories. Thank you once again for sharing your story. We appreciate your work in advocacy on nuclear justice. I will now be introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker for today is Reverend Senji. Reverend Senji Kanaeda of the Nippon Zen Myoji Temple Buddhist Order on Bainbridge Island in Washington has been a part of the anti-nuclear movement for several years. Reverend Senji is actively engaged in the anti-nuclear, peace, nonviolence, social justice, and environmental movement worldwide. Reverend Senji has organized numerous peace walks over several years, which has connected him with many nuclear frontline communities from all around the world. If you can, please unmute and go ahead and please share your story. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So I just mentioned about our annual peace marches, Oregon, Washington, last 15 years. But I just want to share another peace march. I joined it maybe 6 or 7 times in the United States. That's the peace marches in Nevada. The name of the walk is Nevada Desert Experience. Basically, walk from Las Vegas to the gate of Nevada test site. And that is coordinated by a Las Vegas local nonviolent peace organization and also a group for helping homeless people in Las Vegas. The name is Catholic Walker in Las Vegas. So, and then one of the impressive point of that walk, and I joined this for last 7, 8 years, is when that's in general include here. There's many anti-nuclear and also peace movement. It's initiated by mostly the white Caucasian people. Because of there's so many reasons that I don't need to tell just now, but the Nevada test site peace march is particularly one of the very impressive thing for me is always the coordinator is asked to the native elder and native peoples walk in front. And then that's area that's basically most people are suffered by testing is a Western Shoshone tribe and also Paiute tribe. And then most of the time, not every time when I join it, they Western Shoshone tribe as an elder as a walk at first, and then the other except non-native people is all kind of skin color and also religious background. Yeah, that's a very incredibly wonderful, and for me is like an ideal walk. So that is this like today's event here. Also, same things is really remarkable. You know, everybody knows Black Lives Matter movement from last year, and the ending protocol of Trump, President Trump era, and that is, I feel like President Trump had dug out the hiding or or like, how can I say, hiding issue in the underground. He's act as a politician and president, but the other side is the people notice what's going on, what the reality in this country is. That's one of the Trump's President Trump's significant for me. So anyway, and when I joined the Holy Berkeley's UW class of last 8 weeks, nuclear and racism is the big theme. And then, you know, we could tell that in many cases, white race is the people who created and produced and planted the nuclear weapon. And mostly the people who suffered is unfortunately colored people. But I know that including atomic veterans and also downwinders, there's no relationship with any skin color. But that's a reality. And that is, I think a very important thing is like same as Black Lives Matter. When I joined the Black Lives Matter in Bremerton and also Bainbridge Island in the opposite side of Seattle, one of the most impressive thing is white young people's participation. And that is so important. And, you know, at all races and all ethnic cities, this have to be gathered. And then the Black Lives Matter is started that's current is in this country. And then this same as this, you know, for human beings, it's stop the nuclear weapon and abolish nuclear weapon. Very important thing is all kind of people, background, together, work together, play together. That's my thing. The other thing is just a very personal thing is I just would like to share. I was born in Kyushu Island where Nagasaki is. And when I was 9 years old, I'm now 63 years old, but when I was 9 years old, my parents were a school teacher. My father taught mathematics and my mother is a music teacher. And they are also peace activists. And then my mother took me to Nagasaki on August 8, and from my hometown by overnight charter bus to Nagasaki. And then the early morning when I visited it, the first one is the Atomic Bomb Museum. A 9 years old boy, I was so shocked to see many specimens of the victim in the museum. And yeah, it's a big shock to that for the child, how the nuclear weapon is so scary, fearful. And the other side, in the same day, the big annual event, August 9, in the peace conference. So, and I've seen the first time as the many people from Africa, people from Europe, people from America. I grown up in the very countryside, so but first time I've seen so many kind of skin color and people as was in Nagasaki. So that is connected to now. And also I'm very lucky. I'm living in Washington State because it's harmful. Nagasaki atomic bomb was produced there. Today is one of the remarkable thing for me, this event. At the very beginning, I saw the video, the Spokane tribal senior people's statement. And I was so impressed. And next time, if I can coordinate the peace marches again in local, I really want to do something with Spokane people. I've never been to Spokane, even I live in 18 years here in Washington State. But very, very inspired me, Spokane people's ladies, strong and powerful spiritual statement. So thank you very much. And the other thing is, I just want to mention other thing is Japanese peace anti-nuclear movement is started by not Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Basically, the trigger and motivation from fishermen's victimized fishermen in Marshall Island, Bikini Atolls. One fisherman death influenced all of Japanese people, middle of 1950. So, and then probably the almost like beginning of this century, the first time in Hiroshima and Marshall Island, and also Marshall Islander, also people from French Polynesia, and also many downwinders and all kind of nuclear victims gathered in Hiroshima. Just 20 years ago. But I really want to emphasize the people from diverse background should work together and act together, pray together. This is very important. And then I really would like to say thank you that Trump, previous president, opened that gate. I could tell, yeah. But thank you so much, and my invitation today. So, and thank you for Francis, this, how can I say, offered me this opportunity. Thank you so much. 남묘호랭개교, 남묘호랭개교, 남묘호랭개교. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Senji. As you mentioned, it is important having all of our youth involved in every movement. The youth is the future for tomorrow, and it is important to teach them our history now so it won't be forgotten, and so the movement can keep going. It is important to keep the momentum. As a descendant of a nuclear victim, or as I would like to say, survivor,
okay.
I encourage
talk a little confused, but no.
I encourage the youth to use their voices and to keep the movement going. Thank you, Reverend Senji, for actively going out in the community and participating in the peace marches. We will now be hearing from our last speaker of today, Emma Belcher. She is the president of Plowshare Funds. We are extremely grateful to Plowshares for their dedication to ending nuclear weapons and for their generous funding support for this event. Prior to arriving Plowshares, Emma has a background in international security. She has spent decades in the field of security, including the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, Council on Foreign Relations, and managing the Atom at Harvard University's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. She also served as an advisor in Australia's Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet on National Security and International Affairs, and as a public affairs officer at the Australian Embassy in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Emma Belcher.
I'm Emma Belcher, President of Plowshares Fund. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you in real time today, but I did want to send a message of support for this event and the important work you do. Communities in the Pacific, Indigenous people, and people of colour have been among the most impacted by nuclear weapons. Yet so much of the policy debate on nuclear weapons is dominated by abstract and technical discussions about strategy and systems and targeting. It's easy to overlook the toll it takes on human beings, particularly those who are disproportionately affected. Plowshares Fund values equity and justice, and we are committed to advancing those values within the nuclear policy field. We're proud to work alongside all of you to address the humanitarian consequences and real-world impact of these weapons. Voices of frontline communities, such as the Marshallese and other Pacific Island communities, are essential in the debate about how to craft better, saner policies. I've got a personal connection to this issue growing up in Australia. I remember as a teenager being outraged over French atmospheric testing in the Pacific. It was one of my first introductions to nuclear weapons and their impact on people and the environment, and it contributed to me seeking a career in the field. So it's really meaningful to me that today, all these years later, I'm working with all of you to seek a more just, peaceful and safe world, free from the spectre of nuclear weapons. We need to increase support for disarmament here in the United States, given our status as a nuclear weapons possessor state. We need to build a movement of people committed to the elimination of nuclear weapons. It's vital to partner with each other across communities and sectors to make long-term progress on this issue. The COVID-19 pandemic shone a light on the need for a complete reassessment of US national security policy. $240 billion in defence funding did little to protect the nation from the pandemic. We need to be asking ourselves, what truly keeps us safe? And we need to be prioritising accordingly. Ploughshares Fund wants to contribute to rewriting the definition of national security to one that centres human needs instead of weapons. We have an opportunity now to change the trajectory of current US nuclear policy and align it with a broader transformational framework for nuclear policy and national security. We are thrilled to support and partner with the COFA Alliance National Network and this community on this essential work. Thank you for all the important work you do and all the best for your event today.
Thank you, Emma, for your words of encouragement and work done through Ploughshares Fund. Just like Emma, we hope there will be someone who will be touched by the stories we share this week. I hope someone will be touched by the stories and will want to take action as well. Let's not stop here, but let us keep fighting for all who are affected by nuclear weapons and waste. We appreciate your video for the event. We will now go ahead and start our Q&A portion of the event. If you have any questions you would like to ask, please write them down in the chat box and we will do our best to ask our panelists.
Welcome again. Thank you to all of our speakers for all that you have shared with us. And I first would like to start off with our first question to Twa-le. If you can share more about the Midnight site and the Mill site and what is important for your community to see change.
Oh, sorry. Hello?
Yep, you're here. We can hear you.
Okay, for the Midnight Mine site itself, we have 2 uranium mines on our reservation, and they're open pit mines. And so some of the things that we're seeing, the long-term concerns are direct contamination to the groundwater. At one site, we have a Superfund site, and they'll be treating the water forever. But also, even in the cleanup process, we see continued damages to our lands and to our reservation by these mining companies. We've seen some, just unethical business practices by these international mining corporations that continue to think that they are above the law when it comes to the pollution that they've created. So for our community, it's taken so many years and so much resources into learning about the contaminants, but also bringing this company back to clean up the mess that they made, hand in hand with the US government. And so it's been an uphill battle in all of the research. We are seeing some positives in regards to water quality studies and that type of thing, but even in the long term, I think the plan for the next generation of water treatment here is dilution. So by putting it into pipelines, into larger bodies of water is what everybody upstream has agreed on. And so, you know, we just want to make sure that even the communities that are downstream are aware of some of the continued contamination from these sites.
Power on.
Sorry, yes. So it is exactly these unethical practices and the entitlement from all these corporations and big nations that are coming and mining and just overtaking all these indigenous lands. And it is what has allowed this ongoing contamination of the land and also our people, which leads to my second question in what ways, to all of our panelists, Reverend Senji, Trisha, and Twa-le, if all of you could share with us, in what ways would you define nuclear justice, and what does nuclear justice look like for you and your perspective groups? Trisha, if you would like to go first.
I was waiting to have you call on somebody because I didn't want to interrupt.
Keep that in mind next time.
Right. I think as I outlined in my presentation that we need to seek a national compensation program. It's just not the way they've been treating people. You know, the way the U.S. has treated anybody who's been exposed to fallout from production, testing, or waste areas, uranium mining. We have to speak together with one voice and tell them we would like a program like the Nuclear Workers' Compensation Act, but for downwinders. If someone happened to live within a documented off-site radiation exposure area during the years that radiation was released and has any of those cancers or other diseases on the Nuclear Workers' Compensation Act list that are identified as radiogenic, then they should be compensated without having to have dose reconstruction. Give us the benefit of the doubt. We were not monitored, so how would we know what the dose was? They give the workers the benefit of the doubt. If you've ever seen how they calculate their doses, it's like somewhere between this low dose and this high dose, and we're going to calculate your dose as being at the high end. You know, I mean, so we need to be treated like they are, workers are treated under the EEOICPA. I don't think RECA works because I think it's been a great start and it's compensated certain people, but it's running out of funds. It's sunsetting in 2022. And there are a lot of people who should be included in that, like the Trinity Downwinders and other areas, who aren't. So a national compensation program is necessary, but we also have to have some sort of advisory council that keeps track of how we're doing. Some regular kind of meeting. It could be virtual. That's much less expensive than having people go to a place. And but everybody needs to be represented. Children of exposed vets, the families of uranium miners, millers, and transporters. We have to have representatives from all those groups, and we have to work together. No more individual groups working by themselves. That doesn't work. It's clear it doesn't work. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Definitely. We can't keep working in silos because all of this is a collective effort in order to keep going. And seeking national compensation advisory board, making sure that representation is at the core of this as well, really ensuring that accountability for whoever is doing all these destructions, and we definitely know whoever that is. Reverend Senji, do you have any thoughts to share to this question as well, and adding on to what Trisha has shared? Reverend Senji? Okay.
Yes. Yes. I just, I'm sorry, could you tell me the question or anything?
Again? Yes, of course, no worries. In what ways would you define nuclear justice, and what does nuclear justice look like for you and your perspective groups?
Oh, what kind of way? to change?
Naval-based nuclear Horengekyo.
Yeah. Okay. I basically the message bring the message as Buddhist, and then also as just a part of personal citizen through Buddhist prayer. That was beating drum and chanting a holy title. Wherever I joined any peace movement. For example, and I belong to the local peace organization in here in Seattle base in the Ground Zero Center for Nonviolence. They have event every year, maybe 4 or 5 times. Hiroshima Nagasaki Day, and also Mother's Day, Martin Luther King Day, and the others. And then basically, I will join standing in front of the world largest nuclear submarine base is the Bango in Kitsap County, Washington, with Ground Zero member and also all the participants from all over the world. And when I was there, I was chanting and beating drums, and for like the very essence of the Buddha teaching. Yeah, and that's my activity. And also in peace marches. And whenever I walk, averagely maybe 15 or 17 miles a day, when we walk, and I always chanting and beating drum. And that is my how can I say?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. My walk. Yeah. And I also always have a very focusing to that I'm creating a solidarity and also community with all kind of people in the world. I'm very happy to be here because Washington State, this is very important place for changing the world, because so many important locations include Hanford, Bango submarine base in Seattle. And also many Native American tribes, their culture existed here. That is also very important. Yeah. I'm very lucky to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Senji. Definitely creating solidarity and trying to change the world and removing all these barriers that socially, economically, religiously, any social constraints that come with it and raises all these barriers. Definitely something we need to work in order to remove. And there is definitely profound wisdom in the practice you do with your beating drum and chanting as you take your walks and taking time for yourself and tuning into that holistic self and caring for one another, but at the same time bringing all of us together. For Twa-le, if you have any more you would like to say and add to this question, please feel free to jump in.
I just thank everybody and just echo some of everything that they were saying. I think it will take more resources for our communities to connect, because too often we're told that our populations aren't significant enough to prove certain things in the data, but together our stories are much stronger, and we have a next generation that is coming and that we need to lead the way for in a clean, just living in clean homes and drinking clean water. And I think so for nuclear justice, we're looking at just the water that we have, the right to clean water, the right to our prayer. And so for us in our community, that means the right to go build a sweat lodge. And in that sweat lodge, we heat rocks from the surrounding area and pour water and steam and clean ourselves. And when the practices are contaminated, our community members are put at a different level of risk that maybe isn't thought about in some of the current science. But at the root of it, our plants, our animals, those kind of things that are related to our culture are impacted. And we need to be able to stand up for our people, but also those things into, as we move forward. And so for me, that just means that we include our rivers, our fish, our salmon, and then we get to the root of the healthcare issue for our people. We went from being activists to, just for fighting for the environment, to really seeing firsthand how much the people suffer once they get cancer, and that even some of the treatment is just as harsh as the disease itself, and that so much more support needs to happen for every individual person that is suffering because of the US government and their policies. So I thank you again for the invite, and we'll be happy to host anybody that wants to come to Spokane to learn more.
Thank you, Twa-le. Zoning in on that support and resource and stories that, and also the generation that you mentioned that are right here and willing to come up. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, as it leads to my next question. As we have all seen globally, youths have become an unprecedented voice and face many global issues, demanding for a space in decision-making. And youth certainly has been a topic that that all of our speakers, you all have covered in your speeches. There is still that gap. How do you see bridging that generational gap so that we can effectively move forward? Trisha, if you would like to go ahead again.
Thank you for calling on me. Now I know. Well, one thing I really love doing, and I have to thank Holly Barker very much for the opportunity she gave me to do this. I have been appearing in various classes and talking to young people about my story. And that's really woken up a few people, particularly from the Tri-Cities, students who came across the state to UW who didn't know what had really happened in their own hometown with regard to Hanford. So it's like telling our stories, sort of like the SHAWL project, except downwinder related, going into classrooms, talking to people, high schools also, just one-to-one talking to people. And I always share my health issues because people are shocked by what Hanford did to people. And once I was in a class and I just started choking because I have so much trouble with my throat, and it just scared the heck out of some of the students, but it made them realize how serious some of these health problems are that they're dealing with. And I've also had young people who realized for the first time that their parents or grandparents might have been exposed downwind of Hanford or at another location. So that's the way I'm trying to kind of involve young people. And we also have a few young people working with us on CORE, which is fantastic.
Thank you, Trisha. Again, the work that you're doing is so vital to this movement, and going to classes and definitely giving like the awakening that all of these students need, because I think as we are all in this circle with people who are already aware of this, I think we can forget that the rest of the world doesn't know about it, and they actually do need to go back to class 101. And we have to give it to them as well. They also need to do their part in this as well. But as people who have experienced this, it's important that we also share the message as authentically as possible. And going to Reverend Senji, again, the same question of how do you see us envisioning that, breaking that gap between these generations?
Can you repeat that last part real quick?
Of course. How do you envision bridging the generational gap so that we can effectively move forward?
Oh, generation gap.
The young kids, bring the young kids in.
Okay, that's a very big point. The organization I belong to, the Ground Zero Center for Nonviolence, is always discuss about how to, appeal and also, organize the young people, younger generation. That's a really big point. And I also think about like that, but there aren't any like a particular best way to realize it. But at least I expect through the experience in the Black Lives Matter, there's so many young people, young generation that woke up and they also initiated this movement. That movement, and I really feel like hope, and but the other hand, that just there is I don't have any idea to like a particular way to how can I say organize the young people, but just generation gap is this is very difficult. Same as Japanese society also. Almost like the people who initiated student movement is over 70 in Japan. And they are the most active people and involved in the nuclear issue also. But then the young people is in comparison with that generation is not so much. Currently, I just keep going to do, action and prayer. And just one thing that I want to share. And 2003, when I moved to the United States, I joined the peace marches from Ground Zero, New York City to Albany, New York state capital for the peace marches, stop the war and stop the violence. So that time, 82 years old, very famous singer, Pete Seeger, joined us. And then he walked 9 miles with us. And then when we shared a dinner, a potluck dinner at the church in the Hudson River side, and several workers asked him, what's kind of thing you expected to the workers? And he a little bit think, and he answered, very short, keep going. Yeah, that's a very impressive word. I have no idea there's a new particular way, but just I want to follow that word and keep going. That's all right? Yeah. Also, one more thing. The last time, February 5th, when I joined, participated in the class of Holly Berker and UW, and I saw many students, it's a diversity, and also there are wonderful questions to me about the politics and the situation of the world. I really expect our young people as a really, how can I say? That started to think most very important thing. And also the other hand, environmental issue include global warming is very serious. It will attack the young people, young generation. I'm sure this young people will more wake up, like the same as Swedish girl, Greta. Yeah, I expect very much. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Reverend Senji. I think we should also acknowledge and highlight, the acknowledgement that you have in seeing that the youth are definitely prolific in engaging and trying to move action forward in all that we're doing. So that is a first step. I definitely believe in how we should keep going. And also your organization and going to appeal and organize with the young generation is definitely one step also for you that you've done with the people in your team as well in trying to bridge that generation gap. And Twa-le, have anything you'd like to add to that question?
Yes, I think another shout out to Holly Barker, and just the direct, teaching the students and the young people. Some of the most important relationships that we built in our organizing were with the science teachers in our schools. And we weren't making any progress with the administration, with the school board. Anybody didn't want to hear it until we reached those important science teachers. And then the second thing, and what we've kind of transitioned to in the last few years, is kind of embracing not only like the negatives that are involved in all of this, and it was like really hard to engage young people when it's kind of such a devastating topic. And the transition that we made is kind of focusing to more positive. And so when the Yakama tribe showed those boat tours, it was like we had to get out and celebrate the waters that are still left and get our people back, get that connection back to the water, instead of being in fear of the water, being in fear of the animals. Like, get out there and still continue to do that. So up here in the Upper Columbia, we've just started reviving some of our old traditional canoe culture. So like hand in hand with our schools and our young people, we're learning how to build these canoes again out of logs, like the traditional canoes. So we're learning a part of our culture back that we talked about being lost, but also, when we do float by these facilities or we camp near them, we use that as a time to teach our young people. So it's, doing something positive, getting out on the water and bringing this tradition back has been so powerful. And we get so much more support in that type of work than when it was just, when people heard about environmental justice or uranium mining, they tuned us out. But in this other work, it's really empowering to our people. And I just still, again, invite anybody that wants to participate. We're doing more, getting on the water more, and just kind of celebrating what we still have.
Thank you, Twa-le. Again, shout out to our teachers who are going out and using their space and place of privilege, in this case, our science teachers, and enabling and opening up these spaces that students from like Twa-le and her team and all these other people who are standing for social issues, who wants to advocate and make sure there is change in order, and they have to reach to these people in these decision-making levels. So definitely thank you to all our teachers who have done all they can to do that. And I love hearing about, going back to your traditions and roots and reconnecting with your sustainable practices that we've all lived, especially in our Indigenous communities, which have definitely helped our ancestors in the past, and definitely will help us going forward if we want to forward in this fight for nuclear justice, as we try to readapt again to sustainable practices of our ancestors and today. Now for our last questions to all our three speakers. Thank you for holding, and everybody who has been tuning in. I hope you guys have enjoyed it so far and have been learning as well. We're going on to the next question, so please hold on tight. The last question, let's see. For many of our Indigenous communities, ours included in the Marshall Islands, it's so very obvious to us why we should be the one making the decisions on the happenings of our lands. I mean, it's really obvious, right? But we keep getting overlooked. How is it that we need to change perspective or narrative to why and how the systematic oppressors must act, or to be an ally? Please, again, Trisha.
That's a big question. Oh, I'm not sure what to say. Wow. Well, the fact that many people are living in the U.S. under the Compact of Free Association is very helpful. because you are now here. You're not way off in the Pacific. You are visible. And that's a really important thing, I think, to start. And I think, again, I go back to the same old message, but we're a lot more powerful when we work together. If it's just me talking about Hanford, you can easily tune me out. But if we're all together and there's a lot of us, and we become really difficult to ignore. That's the thing. If you're a downwinder, you have to be willing to work on this for years. You have to be bothersome in a diplomatic fashion. You have to keep coming back and not stopping. And so if all of us are working together and we're just still there, they can't get rid of us, then they're going to have to help us, or else we'll be too noisy and it drives them crazy. So I just really think that that's what I'd say, is that just working together.
Visibility. Visibility, let's all sit down with that word, visibility. All of us are visible here. That is what Indigenous community, Indigenous voices have always wanted, because it is our land that we are fighting for. And that's what we need at this moment. So thank you, Trisha, for highlighting that word for us, as we all definitely, I hope we all leave today with that word and the importance of it for our community or the people we're representing. Reverend Senji, please, the floor is yours.
Can you repeat the question? Or
I'm sorry that I couldn't catch it.
No, don't apologize. It's okay. For many Indigenous communities, ours included, it's obvious to us why we should be the one making the decisions on the happenings of our lands, but we keep getting overlooked. How is it that we need to change perspective or narrative to why and how the systematic oppressors must act or to be an ally?
like with AIM, what could the Indigenous of America do with AIM so the white people will understand that this is a serious problem for them, and the white people become more sympathetic to, I guess, for lack of a better word, non-white people in this situation?
I have many Native American friends, and also I joined several times American Indian movement coordinate peace marches from Continental Walk, and also go down from Washington to California several times. And it's a very, very how can I say, the Native people face the same like a little situation and problem. Mean like a younger generation is my guess it used to be not so active in comparison with over 70 or 80 years old, many civil rights movement times Native American activists. But now I realize it's like a little bit younger age of me, the 40 or 50 years old, many like a younger Native American leader grown up, and they have a very good focus to be with, especially white young people, and a very important thing is, especially like any Native American people who initiated that movement, is one of the big condition is that my observation is that most of the leader who initiated that that movement and peace marches is those tribal people, those Native people are never showed any hate or anger to white people, white citizens. That's really, really my discovery. That's why many white young people who have good heart, good possibility, good potential joined it. It's very important. And I couldn't tell what's the best way, what's the good way, but at least, how can I say, as condition of the any Native American movement to change this society, change this world is the very important thing is, how can I say, that's getting over the anger and hate. That's important. Well, also, that is also my experience in the Standing Rock. I also joined the Standing Rock and a week, just very short, but 4 or 5 years ago. One of the most impressive thing is when the morning circle, they have a big morning circle every morning, men's circle and women's circle. And then after that is all like no gender, all kind of people gather. And the very beginning when I joined the men's circle, I really impressed. Almost 2/3 of the circle is white young people. And I really feel hope in that time. And also many volunteers who cooked the food for the participants, and it's a really, really active. I saw the white young people, and then I couldn't tell what's how can I say it, way or but I just my observation is I could see the very, very possibility to the better future in comparison with 30, 40 years ago, or civil rights movement time is quite different. Many people, many white friends talk to me 40 years ago, 50 years ago, never happened. But now there's a Black Lives Matter people and people join it. It's so not so many presidents or I think it's like a president free, much more than elder generation. Then that is probably society was changed, more information. Even like a previous president is dug many trouble, many problem, but young people woke up, I expect. Thank you very much.
So emphasizing on Reverend Senji's words of getting over anger and hate and how he was able to gain hope after seeing all these global movements that are happening worldwide. And I think that's a very important message to take home with us as well, and something I can attest to as a youth myself. Definitely within the youth community, there is a lot of anger as a lot of us are working on decolonizing and seeing all these, deconstructing all these narratives that we've been given and trying to come in a place that is purely from us. And many of us still gather with this anger and this hate, but we recognize that in order to move on, or not to move on, but in order to make the changes that all of us need, we have to overcome this hatred and this anger that we carry in us, that we can certainly use it to fuel us to keep going forward. But it's definitely important that we overcome it in order to work collectively together. Something again from before I said, to fight this and to attain nuclear justice, it is a collective effort from all of us. Twa-le, I don't want to forget you. Please come in.
I love that, just want to bring in the unity. And I think that we have these prophecies in the Native communities about that gathering itself at Standing Rock. And there were so many spiritual leaders that came together and tribes that came together. And even the ones in that area, it was historic that they came together. So tribes that historically battled each other and were at war with each other came together for this one tribe and to back them in their fight for clean water. And so alone, yes, we don't have a chance, but that instance showed that, the world it has our back, and the young people have our back when it comes to the issues that we're fighting. And we just need to ask for that help and put the ask out there, and people will come. And And I think that's what we really learned from that movement, is that we went, but we also used it as a teaching opportunity in our own homes, in our own community, to share, that same fight we have here in Spokane, that same fight you have on all up and down the Columbia River. So if our young people were willing to pack up and go to Standing Rock, or they're right now going across the country to fight other battles, we have those same battles at home, and we need that same energy, and we need that anger here. But first, learn what the issues are. So thank you.
Thank you. Closing this Q&A session with those powerful words from Twa-le, additionally from Reverend Senji and Trisha. And I see in the comment section, my co-facilitator, Francine, said all of this beautifully connects to our theme of we are not alone. Please, I pass the mic on to Francine. ¿Cómo está?
Thank you, everyone. That was such a great conversation. We really appreciate the stories and the conversation that has taken place today. We know that obviously through today, just hearing through the stories, we know that we are not alone. And as the speakers were saying, there's strength in numbers, and it's great that a lot of us here today are not just going to participate and wait here, but take these things and go on into the world and use your voice. And maybe if we all use it together, then it's not just going to be one single person, but we'll see that it's a group of people, and people will see the importance of our voices, and people will see that it doesn't just affect the Marshallese community, but the Washington community, the Downwinders, and that we're all connected in one way. And thank you once again to the panelists for such a great conversation and for your answers. We really appreciate it, and thank you guys so much. Sorry, I'm getting emotional just thinking about how everything is getting together. For so long, many of us thought that we were alone, but it is so evident today that we are not alone. And as we're closing out the event, we're just gonna go ahead and highlight Kathy's video. Kathy Jetnell Kitchener is a poet in the Marshall Islands whose voice is very well recognized around the world. And in her video, we will see the importance of our voice and that we need to continue and keep going. I'll just go ahead and let the video play.
We join our hands in one in the pursuit of nuclear justice for the victims, survivors, and future generations of the people of the Marshall Islands.
As youth from all over the globe, we will stand alongside the people of the
I'm coming to meet you. I'm coming to see you. What stories will I find? Will I find an island or a tomb? To get to this tomb, take a canoe. Take a canoe through miles of scattered sun. Swallow endless, swirling sea. Gulp down radioactive lagoon. Do not bring flowers or speeches. There will be no white stones to scatter along this grave. There will be no songs to sing. How shall we remember you? You were a whole island once. You were breadfruit trees, heavy with green globes of fruit, whispering promises of massive canoes. crabs dusted with white sand scuttled through pandanus roots. Beneath looming coconut trees, beds of watermelons slept still, swollen with juice. And you were protected by powerful Iroij, chiefs birthed from women who could swim pregnant for miles beneath a full moon. Then you became testing ground. 9 nuclear weapons consumed you one by one, engulfed in an inferno of blazing heat. You became crater, an empty belly. Plutonium ground into a concrete slurry filled your hollow caverns. You became tomb. You became concrete shell. You became solidified history. Immovable, unforgettable. You were a whole island once. Who remembers you beyond your death? Who would have us forget that you were once green globes of fruit, pandanus roots, and whispers of canoes? Who knows the stories of the life you led before? Here is a story of a turtle goddess. She gifted one of her sons, Ledao, a piece of her shell anointed with power, a leathery green fragment, hollow as a piece of bark. It gave Ledao the power to transform into anything, into houses and trees, the shapes of other men, even kindling for the first fire. He almost burned us alive. I am looking for more stories. I look and I look. There must be more to this than incinerated trees, a cracked dome, a rising sea, a leaking nuclear waste with no fence. There must be more to this than a concrete shell that houses death. Here's the story of another shell, anointed with power. Ledao used it to transform into kindling for the first fire. He gave this fire to a small boy. The boy almost burned his entire village to the ground. Licks of fire leapt from skin and bones, from strands of coconut leaves. While the boy cried, Ledao laughed and laughed. This is a story of a people on fire. We pretend it is not burning all of us. Here is a story of the ways we've been tricked, the lies we've been fed. It's not poisonous anymore. Your illnesses are normal. You're fine. You're fine. My belly is a crater empty of stories and answers. Only questions. Hard as concrete. Who gave them this power? Who anointed them with the power to burn?
That's not.
That's why they all
Oh no.
Thank you very much once again to Kathy for the video and presentation of Anointed. And to all of our panels, once again, all of our speakers, all of the great information that was shared tonight that unite us together, remind us that again, we are not alone. Komodala, as we say in the Marshallese language. But thank you very much. I also want to recognize again all of our sponsors who contributed and supported this event. Without your support, we could not have been here and presenting this. Obviously, we would have wanted to do it this live together. It would have been a lot more meaningful, of course, because we can be together. But nevertheless, nothing's going to stop us again. As I said last night, we're still in this together. I want to acknowledge all of our partners once again from from the Washington Marshall Islands Nuclear Remembrance Steering Committee, all of our nuclear frontline communities, the Marshallese here in Spokane, the COFA Alliance National Network, the Republic of the Marshall Islands National Nuclear Commission, 509 for Marshallese community in Spokane, Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, National Association of Atomic and Cleanup Veterans, Washington Against Nuclear Weapons, the Inuit Cleanup Veterans, Plowshares Fund, Lab Rats, Children of Atomic Veterans, and the Radiation Exposure Awareness Crusaders for Humanity Marshall Islands, and all of you viewers who participated tonight. Komol Dada. A special Komol Dada to Ayana Kadua, who designed this logo behind me, and also to Jessica Jacob Joseph for printing these shirts for this event. Komol Dada. Once again, I'm going to reintroduce our band today. This will bring the closing of the event, and we'll sing again a couple of songs for you from our Ligia Cabinet Band. Let's welcome them with a big round of applause and share again round of applause to all of our speakers and participants tonight. Virtual hugs to all of you. Special announcement for tomorrow's event. We have another powerful panel tomorrow, so please tune in. At 5 o'clock, we'll bring the band again. At 5:30, we'll shoot right through our speakers for tomorrow. We have from the Navajo Nation, Jonathan Perry, all the way from the Pacific Association of Radiation Survivors, Robert Calestel, and the Downwinders, Tina Cordova, the National Association of Atomic Veterans, Keith Kiefer, and the speaker from Children of Atomic Veterans. Again, you wouldn't want to miss another powerful historical story tomorrow. And thank you again for tuning in. You're welcome to, and you're excused to go. We'll continue to play one more song. Welcome. please, as we tune off tonight, again, a big shout out to all of our AMCs tonight. They did a wonderful, wonderful job. Salino and Francine, you guys rock. Como dada. Okay, good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.